I've always wanted to own an Alienware machine. With that said, I didn't expect I'll be owning this particular one. With that said, even though this one's old, it absolutely serves a purpose. So might as well go over the machine itself and kind of explain why I bought it. Other than the fact I only got it for 25 bucks. So obviously on the top here is the Alien logo. It lights up. Speakers light up. Side right here, card reader, DVD drive, another card reader, USB 2s, a bunch of I/O, or audio I/O, cooling vent, massive cooling vents, power in, and on the other side, VGA, HDMI, display, Ethernet, 2 more USB 2s, eSATA, and a FireWire. Here's what the bottom looks like. I did try doing something about all this corrosion and whatnot from the dust, but this stuff is so caked on that it's practically impossible to remove. With that said, I did take this thing apart, cleaned out all the dust I could, reapplied thermal paste and whatnot, and surprisingly enough, the thermal pads on the GPU, this is the other GPU I have from another Alienware of this type right here, the thermal pads are completely fine. Here's the other one I was talking about. This one I got for 5 bucks, and it's because it doesn't work. With that said though, this one actually had a CPU upgrade. So for $5, I was able to upgrade the CPU in my current. I got the computer itself for $5. I had to buy a power supply for $25. And of course the other Alienware I just mentioned. So in total I have 30 bucks tied up in this. And it's $30 well spent. And this power supply is an official Dell power supply I got from my local freegeek. It's no third-party bullcrap. So yeah. I also do want to mention that, Alex, if you actually do watch this video, you'll never understand the greatness of a freegeek. I highly doubt you have a freegeek near you. You'll never know the pleasure of going to a freegeek. So before I actually turn this thing on, I should go over the GPU. This is the GPU from the other laptop I showed, but unfortunately this GPU and the one that's in this one are exactly the same. Even though the CPU from the one that's dead was a complete upgrade for this one, unfortunately the GPU was not. So with that said, this is a GTX 260M with 1 gig of VRAM, which for what I tend to use this laptop for is more than enough. Because there are certain games that, yes, can be ran completely fine on my main rig here. They tend to run better on properly native hardware for Windows 7 and whatnot. So with that said, I also want to show the CPU. This is a Core 2 Duo. This was the original CPU that was in this computer. I upgraded with a Core 2 Quad, and the performance is very significant. Also, the Core 2 Quad has 2 physical dies compared to the 1 die of the dual core right here. So I obviously didn't record that whole process because, well, this thing's old, and I kind of just want to show off what it can do and why I bought it. So with that said, I might as well actually fire the thing up. In my pure unadulterated optimism, I said this power supply was 25 bucks. It was actually $20. Sorry about that. I might as well go over a few things I don't like about this computer. 1, well, glossy as hell display. And 2, the actual screen itself is dimmer than I would like. Now, I don't know if that was the case when it originally was released or if the backlight on this thing is failing. But I do have that other laptop I showed off, and that is technically my parts computer. So if I have to swap displays, I'll be able to do that. Now, I could do that right now and maybe resolve the dim display, but I'd rather not do that because I actually don't need to replace the display on this thing since it does work. It's just a little dimmer than I would like, but then again, this thing is old, so more than likely the display was already like that when it was originally released. So with that said, it's a tad noisy, as to be expected. In certain instances, though, it's actually quieter than my MSI laptop. But then again, it is kind of to be expected considering how thick this thing is compared to my MSI laptop, but whatever. Now, as you can also tell, I do have an SSD in this thing. It's not that big of an SSD, but I do plan on popping this thing up with some form of more mass storage, because even though this thing is old, I want to use this as my old dedicated gaming machine, because again, like I said, I may be able to run newer games on my main rig here, but they have issues, like I'll show with Need for Speed Undercover. Good grief. Need for Speed is up and running, and this is why I tend to have older systems. So I want to modify the look of my car. So I'm going to use the arrow key here. And as you can see, the slider moves as it should. So you'll think I'll be able to do this on my secondary computer, which also has Need for Speed up and running right now. So I'm going to also do the arrow key. And yet, as you can tell, the arrow key on my secondary desktop here refuses to do anything. But you know what makes it even worse? Is that if I back out a few of these options and then reuse that arrow key again, you can clearly see the arrow key does register in game. But when it comes to like moving around the sliders, it doesn't want to do it. Why? I don't know. I even have it in compatibility mode. Sorry, I should have actually been pointing at this. I have it in compatibility mode, and yet for some reason or another, when it comes to the slider options, they refuse to work. And yet, on my laptop here, which is older than sin, it works as it should. So with that said, that's really the main reason why I got this thing in the first place, is to play older games and whatnot. So I really don't know what's supposed to show in this video, because I mean, this is an old Alienware machine, but I'll think of something. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the issue I was having with the sliders not working on my secondary are also the same for my main. I'll include that. Now I don't have an FPS counter up right now, but I think I can actually do that. Alright, now I've got my Afterburner up and running. Frame rate's in the 40s to 30s. It runs a little lower than I initially thought, but it still runs the game completely fine. Now, with that said, I actually want to see what the temperatures are, and as you can see, unlike Oh No It's Balding and everyone else on YouTube, I'm using freedoms. If everything's being reported correctly, it's staying relatively cool for how noisy-ish it is. I'm quite impressed with the temperature and the frame rate of this whole thing. So, I don't know what else to talk about next. I'll then think of something. I do not like looking at my ugly face when I use this computer, but it handles Minecraft completely fine. I am on an Anarchy server, though it's very much a dead Anarchy server. But, yeah. Now, this can run the newer revisions of Minecraft, but it's not that well optimized. I mean, newer revisions of Minecraft are pretty piss poor optimized as it stands, and even it running on this is impressive, but then again, that is because I do have Optifine installed. So without Optifine, it will practically be unplayable. I mean, it is technically playable on this, but I would much prefer to play the newer versions of Minecraft on my main rig or my secondary rig or any of my other various computers I have that are not this old gaming rig. Now, with all that said and done, this is the real reason why I keep buying these laptops from my local freegeek, excluding my most recent one, is to have something for Sims 2. Now, I know I keep saying multiple times that I found the perfect Sims 2 laptop, but this time I legitimately have actually found the perfect Sims 2 laptop. The other ones I've talked about, they work, but they have little quirks. This one, though, Sims 2 functions natively. So let me load into a world and kind of explain what I'm talking about. Loaded up a pre-made lot. What would normally happen is when I went to like pan the camera around, zoom in and out, I would have severe game slowdown compared to with this laptop here. So let me unpause and scroll. Other than the occasional stutter that you're seeing right here, it's running completely fine, and when I go to rotate, Again, everything runs completely fine, including the occasional little slowdown and whatnot. So unlike my other laptops that I was saying were the perfect Sims 2 laptop, this one actually is the perfect Sims 2 laptop because I get no slowdown from scrolling or rotating the camera, unlike the other laptops like I just mentioned. With that said, I should actually bring one of those laptops out to prove my point. Here's my Dell Studio that I called the best Sims 2 gaming laptop at the time, but as I mentioned, this one has that weird slowdown issue. When it comes to rotating the camera in the neighborhood view, it rotates completely fine in comparison to the Alienware, considering this one I believe is a bit newer. But as you'll see when I actually load up the pre-made house here, when I go to scroll and whatnot, I have severe game slowdown. Alright, so I got the household loaded up, and as you can see when I rotate, it definitely struggles. Actually, it seems I handled it just fine. Apparently this isn't the laptop that had the issue. I'll just keep it in the video because I know one of these laptops I had that weird issue, but this one does struggle a bit more than the Alienware, which is to be expected considering this one really isn't a gaming computer. So it does handle Sims 2 fine, but not in the state I would actually call playable-ish, or at least as nice to play. I'll end the video here with the specs. You already know the GPU. Here's the CPU. It has 8 gigs of RAM. It is running Windows 7 32-bit, the master operating system. And the actual performance is 269s, which apparently are funny, 68s on the GPU, and 7.8 on the SSD and whatnot. Again, for $30, I'm very happy with this computer, especially considering I was able to upgrade the processor from the dual core to the quad core that it has now, which has yielded a significant performance uplift.